Well, so okay, this is a hexagram or something. It comes out to, right? This is a spiritual thing that you do when you have these meetings of spiritual concern. Is that right, Frank?
Yeah. It's simply 3 candles, but it's a symbol, like any ritual, that creates a vibration. It burns the energy and attracts the spirit world. The spirit is always with us. We are spirits borrowing a body. We live in the 3rd dimension.
Okay.
So a triangle is a very strong structure in architecture, and the 2 of them makes a hexagram,
Sure
which is sacred.
It comes together finally in the tetrahedron and some of the things like that. But anyway, maybe okay, good. That's really good. And I wonder if maybe we could start this program in an official kind of way. And I'd welcome you to conversations. And tonight we're going to be talking with 2 people who are concerned with matters of esoterica, or matters of the spirit and some higher dimensions of consciousness and this kind of thing, which has been with us throughout the human experience and is really important now. And if I could, on my far left, Frank Craven. And Frank is a psychic or a mystic healer, and he's also a producer here at Manhattan Network, we ought to say, with a program called What Ails America.
What's Ailing? Healing America.
What's Ailing and
Healing.
It's
on Fridays at 3:30, and it's about the problems with the government and also the healing, the alternative and the solutions.
That's a long-running series.
Yeah, I've been on for 3 years, and I won a Telly Award and a Hometown Video Festival Award. I've won some prizes. I'm pretty happy with it.
Okay.
But I want to just qualify one thing. I'm not a healer. God is the healer, and what I help do is shift people's energy so that the healer within is enacted, and then the headaches, the tumors, whatever it is, starts flowing, because we're all energy, and when we have blocked energy, that's when we start getting a little crippled or pain or something, and all any healer can do, or a masseuse or someone, is to help shift energy around to try to get back on track and rolling.
Okay, we'll be able to talk about some of that during the program, and that's really good. But welcome to the program. Immediate left is Bob Dobbs, and we didn't know what to put up for a lower third or a title page or something like that, so we put up Comprehensive Investigator, because Bob Dobbs is interested in everything. He studied with Marshall McLuhan for a long time, and he's an investigator also of matters spiritual. He's aware of a group called the Evergreens that is a group channeled through a man named Michael Blake Reed.
Yes.
And we're going to be talking about him. And again, Bob, once again, welcome to Conversations and to Manhattan Network.
Great to be here again.
And again, welcome to the audience. And that's what we're going to be talking about. And we were just chatting as we started about this question of esoterica and where do we begin with. Because if one were to talk to many citizens walking around in the street and you talk about psychics, or you talk about people who are touching into another realm or something like that, many, particularly in the skeptical era, many of the people would say, well, it's charlatanism, it's magic hocus pocus, it's this, and it doesn't have any basis in fact at all. That's a standard view that most of the people do have.
And a blessed one.
And it is one that is widespread and based upon the fact, maybe we could begin it there. We want to try and ground this. There are a lot of people who claim to be in touch with another level of consciousness that are, in fact, charlatans. And that's one of the problems that, in a certain sense, pollutes those who might be really legitimate channels or legitimate sources of this kind of energy. And but maybe we could address that question at the outset. Why are so many people skeptical of the idea that there is another level of consciousness than that which is the normal one in which we perceive
Because
things?
it's an easy issue to be skeptical about, because it's the one mystery that nobody has any real valid evidence of, the other dimension, life after death. But we also have charlatans in every other field in the information society, in science, medicine, in entertainment, in commercials, advertising. So the only reason it gets labeled with the dark sign of charlatanism is because it's the one that nobody can really be an authority on.
I suppose that's true. We live in a world where you have stars in baseball and in basketball, and Michelangelo was better than most of the average guys who did sculpture, and that kind of thing you can understand. There are some people who are really legit, really authentic. The term is overworked, but stars, as far as it, we have had a Buddha, we have had, because it ties into that realm. We've had Jesus Christ, we've had the prophets, and we've had Muhammad,
all of the great prophets.
And then we're
into religion, incidentally. We're into working with God and the angels and communicating that God is within us, and we can manifest these miracles that they do.
Right. And they're talking about another realm and so forth. Then we can get into things like William Blake and poets and people that have a certain kind of divine kind of case. We'd call Shakespeare the divine one.
Inspiration.
Inspiration, which is something that, again, that could be understood. But this idea of another realm is one that both of you are familiar with, and certainly we're going to be talking about it now. And where do we bring it into the modern? Who are some of the major people, let's say this century, that have been major voices that were, let's say, the big league prophets, as it were, the big league people who are really bringing authenticity to it rather than just a lot of amateurish.
Everything evolves, and prophecy is always subject to change. And when a group mind shifts a prayer into something that it's like Michael Gordon Scallion, Earth Changes report, Ruth Montgomery, Joyce Brown. There's tons of books and channels and mediums that have come out with new books that talk about ecological devastation and the spiritual realm of things and how we can work with them in our lives. And what happens is when these books get published and popular, people read them, then suddenly a million minds are praying to shift conscious out of that. And therefore then it evolves. And that's the beauty. We have free will. God isn't a dictatorship of good. God has given us the ability to shift and change, and with a thumb we can make things happen, and that's the beautiful thing. And something I wanted to address earlier when you were saying about the people who poo-poo this as, that's a blessing, because, you see, we're born in ignorance, because if we're really aware of all our past life, reincarnate lifetimes, and we're aware of the divine mind that we have access to as spiritual beings, we'd be overwhelmed, and the game is over. It's like if we're playing cards and we all have our hand, we're playing poker. The fun is, because I don't know what you have, you don't know what I have, and then we vie for the pot. But once I'm totally aware of your hand, my hand, the game's over, and it's no fun. So living in the third dimension, we have a contract with ignorance, and therefore, even though people in their heart know the truth and resonate to these wonderful channeled books and spiritual mediums and psychics that have the message of God coming out, they prefer to say, nah, forget about it, or just, steer away from it, because all of a sudden there's a responsibility that takes on, and a sense of the game's up.
A sense of scientific skepticism, for one thing. Scientists will be skeptical of people who are going to do tricks, and there have been people throughout the millennia that have done tricks and so forth, and then there's skepticism of that, perhaps healthy skepticism in a certain sense. And then the difference.
But he's saying it's human.
Well,
it's God divined human to be stubborn and filter consciousness. That's a human gift, a necessary condition of this reality.
Okay.
So God supports our disbelief of him.
Can we separate these things if we can? Talking esoteric and so forth.
That's esoteric what I just said, right?
I know it is. It is. I know. And if God is in all of this, there's that kind of thing. But can you separate it from the traditional, religious traditions that we have? And most of those.
No, you can't.
From those that are the modern mystics. We now have a channel, this Sylvia Brown, best-selling book on the New York Times bestseller list, and she can do wondrous things that they can do. There have been other people who have been able to do things with Ouija boards and things like that, but from the tradition of religiosity, most people claim to be either Christian, Judaic, or have a religious faith, or a sense of monotheistic,
which comes out of the
or
alphabet.
One other kind of thing. But do we separate the religious traditions with some of these other mystic or psychic things, or are they of the same? And how do we deal with the two? And is the one a heresy of the traditions that are tried and true, and there are people that are, do you understand what I'm getting at?
Let me just answer that. I bring in, the point is the cultural medium is the difference. Monotheism comes out of writing and the phonetic alphabet and then the Gutenberg galaxy. All right? Before that was the common occult world, in the pre-literate world, pre-alphabetic. And the post-alphabetic world, this electronic world, reintroduces this. Blavatsky comes in with the telegraph.
Madame Blavatsky.
And a good book to run through the history of this is Eric Davis's Techgnosis, where the telegraph inspired all kinds of crazy mystical visions and also an interest in the other dimension. That was a post-print, post-literate phenomenon. So religion, if we define that as monotheistic, then it is a product of a different medium of communication than the pre- and post-literate.
Yeah, but we don't do that. It's a Western monotheism, and then you have the Hindu and the Vedic and the Buddhist traditions, which have a different kind of take on the evolution of consciousness. Because the West thought that consciousness came out of material, and the conscious thought was a priori.
They come out of iconographic, which does have more amelioration and resonance with what we call the occult and the esoteric. They adapt to that more.
Now we separate the religious, Jesus, Buddha, Muhammad, from the esoteric and the occult. And why do they call it occult? Do you understand what I'm trying to get at here?
These guys were gifted, enlightened beings that God spoke through them and taught us how we can manifest the miracles that they made, and taught us the simple way. And after they died, and myth and legend was sprung around them, religion was created. And religion is discipline. Basically, religion is community, gathering together and worshiping together and singing, and it's a social thing. Religion is a discipline of the social norm and creating ways of worship and prayer.
Well, I think there's a theology and a system of divine theology, and there was a,
Theology is
that was the
analogy.
basis of the medieval curriculum.
Right,
Most
but
of the
community
universities were
is
studying-
analogy.
Uh-huh.
Theology is analogy, a metaphor to unite a community. So community is an analogical.
Yeah. And religio,
So-
I think, means to hold. I think it has the
Yeah,
concept.
analogy
the
holds together.
Latin to hold together.
Religare, to
Yeah.
recapture. Ligare is to tie.
Okay.
Religare, to
Maybe-
get back to
Right.
God. Religare.
Okay, yeah. But we get back to it. I mean, and what is posited against this kind of, let's say you call it a cult. We're going to lack that. We're going to, Jesus is a cult?
No, there's no cult involved. Cult
and,
is a cult. That's
But
something
I'm trying
else.
to get, and so is the opposite of that would be, we haven't had the Enlightenment, and there were people who were living, you know, with mystery and with sort of not understanding things. We now understand things increasingly with intellectual understanding of what's going on. We know what DNA is. We know what causes lightning. We know about electricity. We've learned these things,
And
we've had
also-
to live in mystery in the past. So we're coming out of a James Joyce called history a nightmare, from which he's attempting to awaken, of ignorance in a sense. We're now understanding it.
Yeah, the
and the
veil is
modern
lifted.
scientific view would be that these are mystery things that people had to deal with because there was no other way of dealing things because we were just dead ignorant of, of the major
But science
processes.
doesn't agree. Every 18 months, everything that science said is erased due to Moore's law. We change that fast now, so nobody can claim a monopoly anymore. And that's why people are exploring other avenues of techniques of understanding, so that science, the repeatable experiment, is just a minority player now.
And agnostic scientists have a tremendous spirituality and faith in God that they don't define. And for decades now, long ago, the CIA and the KGB have been experimenting with psychic phenomena and parapsychology as a practical means in warfare and espionage. So
And
it's
I was
really-
part of that. That was
Yeah.
my background.
Yeah. They've been doing these things, yeah, and you had Carillion photography coming out and all kinds of things that were coming out of the technology and that. And
So
there
the
have been
science
people-
community definitely accepts parapsychology and psychic phenomena, and there's just too many ghost stories that abound
Right.
in every culture and every town and every part of history throughout the world. Ghosts exist, spirits exist, and God exists,
I
whether you
would-
like it or believe it or not.
Yeah, I would not think, perhaps you're right, you might be right, I don't know, but I don't think the bulk of the community would believe in things like ghosts. and
We don't know what people
poltergeists
believe
and
anymore.
things. No, I mean, I don't think they would. I mean, that would be my guess.
No, that would be the
they would
public
say
stance.
this is, yeah,
it's
the public
cultural
stance.
nostalgia. America's based on Puritan one-dimensionality, and I don't mean that judgmental, but they do not want to accept that. That archetype is circulated in the media, but now with electronic and digital life, people live in their own universes now. They are not bound by
Well, that's
national
another,
imagery.
That's another change that's coming.
Yeah, that's
McLuhan read that stuff so
right.
well about the medium is the message, and the
that
effect
will
of
affect the
tech.
traditions of religion and occult or personal spiritual exploration.
But these occult traditions and the mysticism have been with us for thousands
Right.
of years.
Humans have been with us
Now,
for thousands of years, but human language changes
Well,
with new
apparently
technology.
we understand now. We didn't, but now apparently we understand with the mitochondrial and even linguistics and so forth that humans have not been thousands, but they've been here 200,000 years. So we got a date of when it began.
We only have a temporary date that's more qualified than 50 years ago, but it will be subject to change in 10, 15 years.
Yeah,
It's an
subject to
ongoing
change
metamorphosis.
constantly.
Yeah.
That is one thing that is definite.
Yeah, there's a constant change. Well, all right, yeah. Well, then, yeah. So then, where do we get at, and where is the place for that? This idea of God, or the idea of there being some sort of a. I think it maybe comes back to the idea of whether or not there is in the universe intelligent design.
Of
to the
course
structure
there
of-
is.
No, you say of course. There are many people who would say it's chance and necessity.
I
but
would
not.
say-
probably a lot of your evolutionary theorists would say it's just growing out of material.
A
It's just-
different
Yeah,
way
the evolution
is
of
intelligent
gases.
and
design.
that your idea of God is just some sort of a dream.
Right, but those are
thing
concepts.
that people want to believe because they
One
want a
part
sense
of the esoteric
identity.
tradition, Harold, is to study the process of perception and understanding itself.
Uh-huh.
That's what is done in the Zen tradition, or even in the Christian monastic esoteric, is that you study the process of communication and the attempt to find order as an ordering principle. that's beyond the concepts that come up in the discussion.
Yeah, well, that would be, yeah, but you have this idea of there being some sort of an overarching, so it comes
No,
down
that's
to
an image. You would study the image that you have of
well,
that.
whether or not the argument would come down whether or not there is a design to the universe. Is there an intelligent design
Well, you'd
to
have
the
to
universe?
determine what a design is. Obviously, Harold, you show up as a constant design every day. So there is a God
So
in
does
those
everyone.
terms around you.
Look, I ask you, this is, you put in a bag all the ingredients to make an automobile, and you shake it up and you throw it out 1,000,000 times. You're never going to get a perfectly functioning vehicle. But put the ingredients to make life run, and it's out, and we're perfectly functioning from a grasshopper to a whale. There is, of course, an intelligent design that has created us, maintains us, and will continue us. And
But science and Darwin and the evolutionists would say that you don't need some sort of an overarching oversoul or some sort of an intelligent design to that. The design didn't create a clock and let it run or something. That it just evolved out of the events. It just evolved. And
Yeah,
it's
but
a
they
self-replicating,
150 years ago, they could
consciousness.
write books and nobody could interact and argue with them.
Yeah.
In the 20th century, everybody can argue with everybody with all our modern communications, so nobody has a monopoly anymore. You're talking about an image of the universe that the telegraph and the printing press brought in 150 years ago, and it lasted 50 to 60 years, and now that Darwinian thing is not a major holder anymore.
Well,
You've got Lamarckian retrieval, you've got self-organization, you've got Varela, you've got all kinds of new imagery, and these people get to have access to the public's imagination and desire for an image immediately, and so there's transition and imagery. Why don't we look at the process of why we can have such constant image changing? That's what we're living in today.
Yeah, well, that's true. That's true. It's changing really quickly. And that sort of
well,
thing,
and so
yeah.
no imagery holds forth. So you end up in the public field, people like Stephen Jay Gould,
Yeah.
representing this mythic image of the Darwin thing against maybe Lynn Margulis with the new endosymbiotic
Yeah.
biology,
Yeah.
and there's a conflicting image of design. But what is the coherency is
Yeah, but
the communication system that allows people to
Yeah,
communicate
but
so
Stephen
chaotically.
Jay Gould and that view of evolution is still the reigning paradigm.
Oh, no,
in
that
the
is-
scientific
No,
community. There's
they-
going to be very few
What he's
people
saying,
who are
if I
going
may
to-
interject,
I mean,
is
what
there
are you-
is no
are you
reigning
going to have some
paradigm.
sort
Not
of
anymore,
thing-
no
Are
reigning
you going to
paradigm.
have some
There's-
sort of a
we-
creationism or
No,
something?
knowledge
that we're gonna
has
teach
grown
in the schools? That's a
morphogenetically.
big
It's just-
argumentation that's going on now.
Are
an
you
overarching
listening? Hell, you got to listen
I'm
to
sorry, I
us.
didn't hear you.
I'm saying
What?
knowledge is increasing morphogenetically. It's expanding to the point where it's just exploded wide open and keeps expanding exponentially in every direction.
It is
So
now,
it's
yeah.
really difficult to get a handle on what is actual truth. But basically, people like Dr. Raymond Moody, who was a surgeon in a medical hospital, and
That's
he's
all the near-life death.
Life After
Yeah,
Life, his
right.
series of books, and
Yeah.
he's had all these people that have dead and flatlined, and then they come back, and then it's been cross-checked by a number of other people who've had out-of-the-body experiences. It's starting to, you put two and two together. You start reading all these psychic books and everything, or even holy books, and all of a sudden there's a lot of parallels and truths that are equations that are translations of the same truth. Like in religions, too. It's basically the golden rule, it's respect, and it's all basically saying the same thing. So.
But the important thing is that even those images, there's so much evidence in that world you just cited, but even they can't hijack Tom Brokaw and say we've established things. That's the Evergreens define, one we'll play
Evergreens
later,
will get
define
around
the
to
second
that.
coming as a time of perpetual change.
The
That's
second
the
coming
best.
of Mashiach, you mean?
Just the cliche archetype, second coming,
Yeah.
they say that means, in reference to the Christian background, that means a time of perpetual change. So we're definitely in the second coming right now, and there's a second coming of every archetype, and every cliche comes back and has its 10 minutes in the sun, and then disappears. It's the disappearing quicksand, Mercury quality, which is the challenge to all traditions, including the occult.
Warhol gave him 15 minutes.
Right.
Only gave him 10.
But then what did he say next?
Yeah.
He said in 15 minutes, everyone will be famous. That was his update.
Yeah. Well, I can
And that
understand what
happened.
you're saying. And yeah,
I feel, that if Christ is coming, because Christ is here, the Christ consciousness, there's a lot of light coming to the planet, and all of a sudden our vibrations are lifted, and we're all awakening up to our divine self within, and we're recognizing higher truths that we never thought possible. Like 100 years ago, there was no electricity, and walking on the moon or telephone or television was an impossible concept.
absolutely. Now you can plug into the...
And every 10 years, or there's
Yeah, but
a revolution in technology, and and also an awareness, a spirituality. Mankind is
But
evolving
the
as a
spirituality's
species.
been there for 1,000 years. So now you say because we got all this technology, the hard-won science, we won this knowledge, we got this knowledge, and people have had to accept things on faith in the past and some Shiva or some sort of thing like that. They've got all these religious traditions and things that they had to deal with because they were ignorant. Now we're not ignorant. Now that we're becoming not ignorant,
we're
gonna go
ignorant of
back
the new-
to
we're
gonna
not
go back
ignorant
to
in
the
that
systems
limited
that
way.
we use. we're going to go back
We're
to
not.
this.
We're
rather than
ignorant
use
in the invisible effects of that medium back then. We're now ignorant of the medium today.
The technology and material evolution has nothing to do with anything except
You don't
burden us down. Actually, it's
Well,
in our
that's an
spirit.
assumption.
I'm talking about our spiritual
Yeah.
awakening.
Yeah, well, we
all
had
this
this-
modern mechanical
could've-
stuff is garbage. That's burdening our
I don't agree
spiritual
with that.
life.
No,
I mean,
you
it's
don't.
not garbage.
Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah,
I'm talking
qualify
about
that.
opening up our third eye.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do
Well,
with
we've had the third eye since Buddha.
Right,
Right.
right.
For 2,500 years, we've had these systems. They're there, and you can meditate on the lotus, and you can do all.
And
these
they've all
things.
failed.
And now
no,
there's
but there
something-
have been gurus who've been able to meditate for weeks on end, and people who control their body and their system for thousands of years. There
Yeah.
are masters.
Well, they have been able to do that now, but is it now where in a systems way we're going through in the evolution of universal consciousness, we're going, there was a consciousness before there was Homo sapiens sapiens. There was Australopithecine.
Every
Homo
system
erectus,
has
Homo
every
habilis.
system has
There
its
was a
15 minutes
system.
in the sun now.
Wait, all
Every
right.
system is reduced to a
And
sound bite.
we had
That's
had,
a spiritual condition
I
in the most
understand.
esoteric,
Okay.
where nobody can hold the controls anymore.
well,
and the
wait a
machine
minute.
can't even
well,
hold.
wait a minute. There
That's
might
good.
be a synergistic resonancy that has some sort of a consistency of direction in the universe. There's some
You need
purpose
that?
to it. Well, I don't know. Maybe.
Is that your
but
image
the
of
point,
intelligent
the point
design?
is we've had that thing, and we've gone through. We've now 200,000 years. Now we are coming to the end of the human
You
experience.
can't say when now
Not at all.
is.
We're not coming to
you can't even
no, we're
say when
coming
now
to
is.
not the end of human experience, but coming to an end of a phase of our ignorance. We're finally waking up to ourselves and.
To those traditions that were clouded in ignorance.
Well, then
we
you-
have new
no,
traditions
all right,
evolving.
now you're going to say you're going to invoke the traditional ignorant systems which were called spiritual because we didn't have the knowledge of what the reality was. We didn't know electricity. We didn't know.
No, we had
We
experiences.
didn't have this.
We had
now
experiences.
we had mythic systems we had to live with, and there are all kinds. They're all over
Yeah,
the world.
yeah.
Shamans doing
Right,
this
right,
in
right.
smoke-filled rooms and all kinds of
Yeah,
things like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
And they have all this kind of stuff. Now we get the knowledge of what it is, so we can take control. McLuhan one time said, "We're going to go through the tribal dance. We're going to be wide awake.
Yeah.
We're going to know what it is.
He
We're
did
going to
not wa-
transcend
he did
our
not
ignorance."
want us to
And now
stay
you
in
want
the
us to-
tribal dance.
And now
No.
the spiritual tradition wants us to go back and retrieve
Because we don't
the
know what
old
time it
system,
is,
rather
because
than
we can't,
take
Harold, you have
control.
to, we got your point, but you have
Yeah.
to respond. Because we don't know what time it is, then all times can happen. So we have retrievals of all traditions. But the hidden medium of our time, the hidden spiritual condition, is that none of them can dominate the situation. So
well-
we're all screaming for funding. So the real control is economic, and then we could bring in Kelso.
Well, I agree with that. The
right.
council thing.
Okay, so where's spirituality and money?
Well, yeah. Well, then go back.
Money is very spirit. It holds the world together in this frustrated state.
Yeah.
Do we come here, reincarnate to experience frustration? Then we need to keep the money system. If we don't want to experience frustration and the universe wants us to evolve in a newer condition, then we're going to break through the money thing.
Yeah.
Will that create a new problem for us? These are the ongoing spiritual dimension.
Well, I know over the long haul. In fact, we're going to try and get a little tape in with one of the authentic people that some people, the people who are concerned with things spiritual, had. I mean, there was Edgar Cayce. He seemed to have a great deal of resonance and so forth among the
healed
people.
people.
He was healing, and he had great things. And another one was this Jane Roberts. I got a little tape we did with her way back in '74, and she channeled Seth.
Great.
And
She was
what
one of the
came
first
through
original
was, she was
breakthrough
authentic.
channelers, yeah.
So you're trying to separate the
Mediums.
authentic ones,
Right.
the wheat from the chaff, and she was one. So we got a little tape in the Evergreens, perhaps another,
A little
that
later.
kind of thing. But if you go in, and then if you get into the realm of the people who are trying to, you got Bucky Fuller, and Bucky Fuller used to try and look about, and he postulated an a priori mysterious design to the structure of universal mind. He posited a
Yeah.
universal mind. But that it was a series of hierarchical resonances, and it was synergies of behavioral systems unpredicted by the sum of the parts. So there's something resonatingly more than what you can predict from the system in which you are, into which you're arriving.
Right. And now that we have
may
machines,
be closing
yeah, but
quotes
Harold,
on the human
and then
experience.
you've got the situation where machines have come alive, and you have the android meme.
Correct.
That is causing a crisis for all
That's
new age
technology.
retrievals.
That's growing out of the material
us.
world of technology. That's
Right.
like the noosphere of
It may be-
Chardin,
Ah.
and we're growing
If
toward
you read Eric Davis' Technosis, runs through Tesla, Edison, they all use mediums for inspiration in their technology, in their
Really?
inventions.
Is that true?
And I'll tell you a
Fuller
secret.
didn't.
Every corporation in America, all the main ones over the last 200 years, all were based on astrological foundations.
well, that's really something.
Yeah,
The
that's
successful
that's
ones.
really something.
yeah,
The
they
successful
founded
ones.
themselves on
Well,
astrological
that-
information.
well,
Well,
that
that's
should
what
be
made
documented.
Reagan a
That'd be great.
popular
That'd be
president. He
documented.
did
Yeah.
everything by the book, you
Yeah,
know.
but then when I know I did a program once with a guy, Jane Roberts. Same year, Jane Roberts sent me a Christmas card, and also Arnold Hutchnecker, who was William. He used to do programs about consciousness. He used to lap it over into psychology.
Yeah.
Because that's sort of, in a sense, looking at the soul. And
What
that
was
sort
his
of thing.
name?
Hutchnecker.
Oh, okay.
And he was Richard Nixon's psychiatrist.
Well, there
that
you
was
go.
into the realm of the occult. as a political leader.
Look
He
at
was
Nancy
visiting
Reagan.
With, he was Nancy
Right.
Reagan, and
Let me give you an
and
anecdote
then
here
you
about
got
Nancy.
Hillary Clinton channeling
Houston,
Eleanor,
which she denies,
that
but-
kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And when they bring that up in the real world, they have to bury it.
That's the
because they are
machine.
seen
That's
as
the
being-
android meme.
Yeah.
Imitating humans who always want to be stubborn and filter.
So those people, those kind of
Yeah.
things
That
should
is
be
not
out.
many,
but
of
they
course.
see it as
We should be learning
quackery.
astrology and
Yeah.
psychic sciences in grade school, for
And
God's
we
sakes.
can learn them. Well, let's not even
Astrology.
bother with grade school. It's
Well, of
just
course.
free the kids from school, let them use the internet, and give them guaranteed income for at least 20 years, and then you can have a lot of education.
Oh
You'll have
boy,
a lot
let
of
the
time.
kid run wild with his genius.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
you do
know, the
not,
kids that
Because the android meme will make sure that he can't use his genius when he gets out, and then he's got to deal with that spiritual
You
problem.
know, a typical third grader in Switzerland knows French and German and Italian.
Right.
You know, as a matter of
But
course.
you'll be having systems that will translate, machine systems, and the technology is going to be taking over a great deal of the conscious
It
kind of
did.
things that we've been doing. They're taking over.
Let's go to Jane.
They have.
So we can have time for
Yeah, you're
both.
right. Okay, yeah, we could talk about that. But what a
Let's
based
play
in
the tape.
Fuller was.
Let's go to the tape. Give them an example of what we're
Okay,
talking
we could
about.
talk about it. There was one, Jane Roberts,
Yes.
and I in '74. It's an old tape. We'll play it
let's
for a
go.
few minutes, and it's her talking with her husband Robert Butts, and she had this experience, and it's Jane talking first, just talking like
Right.
she was really nice. She had a great sense of humor.
And then
She's really
she
good.
changes?
And then it does go. It's a little blippy and everything, and it's bad, grainy, and then she does go into what they call the trance state. And Seth comes through.
Okay, let's hear it.
So
Go ahead.
This is the only tape of her in the Seth state, so we'll play.
Congratulations for making the tape, Harold.
Well, I like.
You're the only one who has
Jane
it.
Roberts was my friend. We were friends. I'd really like
Good.
Jane Roberts, but what was going on, I don't understand.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, let's play that tape now, then, please. And if you can.
She let the spirit in.
Pushing. Well, they're trying to get this.
So there was this,
Here it comes.
this Anthony, Seth, made himself available. Maybe you could tell them a little bit about Seth's state or Seth's session.
Well, after the board session stopped,
Yeah.
as they did very quickly, I just began speaking the words automatically for Seth without knowing what I was saying until I came out of trance. There was no training per se for this, no self-hypnosis, nothing. It just happened. Although I did give consent. That is, had I not wanted to do it, it wouldn't have happened.
Okay,
But I was
right.
so curious. I wanted to know what was happening. In the beginning, I paced the floor constantly in trance. I refused to sit down because I'd read about Casey,
Yeah.
and he lay down on a couch. I thought, no, not for me. I'm not going to, and I figured that if I didn't like what was going on, I could run, which
Yeah.
was silly because I was the one that was tweening.
Yeah.
And then it took, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 years before I sat down, before I then would close my eyes. And then there was a period where I closed my eyes and never opened them. And then where all of a sudden I opened them, but I was in a deeper, of course, kind of trance than I had been before that transition. The one point on reincarnation I wanted to mention, though, too, and
So,
Seth.
a lot covered there. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, was that one of my first short stories was on reincarnation. And I thought as an idea or a concept, it was great. I love to play around with it. But when this starts happening, when, say, magic becomes real, and all of a sudden you're told, well, you had this kind of a life, or you did this, or this is a fact, then I balked. Because it was one thing for me to play around with the concept and think, well, I go for it, or I don't, or what. And another to accept it as a definite fact of existence. And also, I don't like, and never have, and Seth doesn't either, the idea of karma, as it's been spoken about so much, or the idea of guilt, where people believe, for example, that they're suffering in this life because of a karma that they have in a past life. I don't believe in that kind of a connection.
You don't,
And also I believe that all time happens at once.
introduction. Extremely good information. And I would like to inform the viewing audience that Jane and Robin have very, very kindly invited us to be present at a meeting and class in which possibly Seth will come through, and we'll see if we can maybe in the background get some of that for the video audience.
A hectic affair.
Fantastic individuality. And whenever any beliefs, even our own, blind you to that, you have lost. Whenever you relate to someone as simply a belief, or you get your back up and you don't see the reality, than we want.
Jane, I had an experience this week. I told my husband.
Will bring you closer to people. It will not divide you. If it divides you, that is not what it is. I bid you good evening.
How's it going?
Good evening.
And understand your responses to our friend here. For when he speaks, you fear the vocabulary, spiritual biology within your being. And it speaks. Or when you wiggle your foot, that is also a highly biological nature to your spirituality. Your atoms and your molecules and your cells know themselves to be part of all that is. They do not question. That does not mean that there is anything wrong with questioning. It does mean that I say to you that you are blessed because you are that your spirituality is known through the glories of your flesh, and that your flesh becomes more spiritual because of its existence through the seasons and its experience with the time that you know and recognize. You form your own reality. I say this to you each week. Yet through your own dream experiences and through the suggestions that I will give you, that I hope that you will follow, you will be able to discover this for yourselves. For I hope to be able to show you the different levels of consciousness in which you dwell. Again, as I have said before, you are indeed given the gift of the gods. You form your reality. What better gift could be given to you? How then could you imagine that you began this present excursion into this current life already damned, flawed, or forsaken? If each of you would simply listen in the quiet of your own mind to the music of your own cells, you would know that the atoms within you speak with a joyful exultation. Those atoms and the molecules, luckily, have not read many of the books that you have read, and they do not read your newspapers. They know that they are blessed because they are. They know if some of you are more serious people will forgive me, and I close my eyes so as not to embarrass you. They know that existence is fun. They realize that fun is good and joyful, and that the gods play.
All right, so that's Jane. I went on and everything. She was in
Thank
that
you.
trance state. There aren't many. So she's one like that who's touching into another level of consciousness. And apparently, people who understand this stuff said that the information that came through had great validity.
Well,
So that's one test
that's
by
bull.
which we can judge. Oh, that's
all
bull.
information has validity. I mean,
some
I'm not
information is
denying she's
wrong.
in trance. She's channeling something, maybe. But even their information, it might have been interesting in 1974. But even then, if you were a quite aware human being and savvy with media, those are puny platitudes, atoms and molecules. Why is she talking about gluons and quarks and the language of physics in 1974?
Well, that's a question,
these are cliches.
Yeah, they
I'm
are.
not
Well,
putting down what she
not-
is, but it's
not-
not. No wonder it never that couldn't stop the world. What's going on there?
Yeah, much less Jesus. Yeah.
Yeah.
He didn't.
But
yeah.
you know, there's a thing called spiritualism. It's
Yeah.
the National Council of Spiritualist Churches all
Yes.
across the country. People
right.
gather and do mediumship and channeling and billet reading, and it's a very typical thing nowadays.
It is,
Back
right?
then, in the early '70s, it was very, brand new.
It's odd.
But since
Yeah.
the Fox sisters were called in the White House by Abraham Lincoln as mediums,
Right.
spiritualism has been a movement in this country and accepted. And Houdini was famous for trying to.
He was, and he
to-
had
to-
that
to
Annabelle. He was going
try
to
to-
talk to her from death. He was
He-
going to talk to his wife.
But he made a life process of trying to, divide, look the hoaxes versus the real ones.
That's what we're trying to do. Is to,
Well, it's
he tried to show the hoaxes where they appeared because he knew the real thing. That's what, in a sense.
But
you need
nowadays, since
spiritual.
spirit is manifesting and there's been so many breakthroughs and the light and the frequency of the planet is lifting and people are waking up, it's
Yeah, but
just
how do
happening
you,
all
how do you
over.
separate
But you
the
gotta-
wheat from the chaff?
yeah, you gotta change
how do
your
you
language.
separate all
Yeah.
the
More,
nonsense?
in the leisure society,
you
more people
understand?
have chances and time to replay past. It's a repertory of past activity,
Yeah.
which was put out as a public phenomenon in the Victorian and print Gutenberg Christian era, but happened before and in other cultures that weren't literate. So it's not that spirituality is awakening. The tradition of spirituality that phenomenon represents, which is a type
Jane
of,
Roberts, you mean? Yeah.
which is a type of spiritual activity that has a renaissance and has a baroque spiral of people involvement because we have time and people can engage it.
Yeah,
but it doesn't mean that it's spiritual now.
Well, what do
It
you mean?
doesn't mean that it relates to reality.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a breakthrough at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But how you say how just divide the wheat from the chaff is what resonates to you, what
Oh.
sounds good in your heart. But people get readings, and oftentimes a psychic will say, "Does this make sense to you?" Because they'll just spit out things that don't make sense
Right,
to them.
right.
But they get these impressions
Well, what
from the
about the peop-
spirit.
what
And if
about-
it works, it works.
Oh, what about the people who make a thing? Remember when Benjamin Krem came? He was following Alice Bailey, and he had this thing. He had this thing that the Moshiach or the Messiah was going to appear. In fact, he was taking incarnate form, and it was off Alice Bailey, the Masters of Wisdom, the
Right.
Maitreya, was going to appear in
Out of
person.
London.
And he was in London, and you went.
Always
I know a bunch
London.
of us got
See,
together.
the royal families have been into this stuff. The
Well, now
oligarchy.
you're tying it
no,
into the
I
idea
take
of the
Linda, I
royal
agree with
family.
Linda LaRouche
Yeah.
that there is a paradigm shift that's happening due to the technologies, and historical rulers and oligarchies are trying to hijack with the archetype and cliche of spirituality, and it always comes out of London.
That's
Blavatsky and this stuff,
That's
because was traditional
Well,
from
London ruled the waves,
Francis
too, yeah.
Bacon on. The Royal Society in Newton was based on occult activity.
Yeah, but Benjamin
This is
Krem
what
was-
Frances Yates has shown in her books.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay,
Frank, I don't
George
so
know.
Washington was a Mason, and
Right.
how they made this
but I'm
country.
not. Even the Masons, the royal family doesn't have any control anymore. Nobody has control.
Well,
so
no,
let's go
Wait
to a
second,
medium.
you mean
Wait a
the
minute.
Illuminati and the secret government and the
No,
New
I was a
World,
member of it, and I'm here to tell you
the
what
New World,
happened.
the New World Order.
Yeah,
is now?
I was the one who brought a lot of that in, and we've done a whole session. I don't want to get distracted,
Yeah.
but I will tell you what helped me get away from the Illuminati and help to dissolve it was the next medium you're going to play. Now this is a modern medium.
Okay, yeah, you
this
got
is
this
the
guy.
most advanced state of mediumship. This is not people sitting around. This is
This is big league medium.
This is big
Big league
up to
poets,
date,
right? Okay.
postmodern,
Right.
Android meme, tuned into the Android meme, battling with the Android meme, which
Mm-hmm.
is the simulated Illuminati. And what you have here is 6,500 and 7,000 entities inside one person's brain,
Mm-hmm.
or head, or skull, or etheric body, whatever term you want to say. They take over his voice and his consciousness, and then you can talk for an hour, always an hour, because they shut down the body, and it's very close to death for Michael to be able to allow this to happen.
This is Michael Blake Reed.
Michael Blake Reed. So you're going to hear us and a friend of mine, Mark Stallman, interviewing the evergreens, where they tell us the history of mushrooms and psychedelics in history, and we will get the facts. Now granted, it's just English, it's one vocal medium, it's limited compared to the mixed corporate media we live in, but this medium, over my 75 times with them...
You've done it 75 times, where he's channeled these people.
Yes, and they give out information, a lot of it's come true. But the point is they can tell us accurately about our history. So I want to show you the speed of intelligence in modern mediumship compared to the slower, exaggerated type of 30 years ago.
So he's a Moore's Law medium.
That's right. This is an improvement on the tradition.
And that's coming. And we were going to do a piece with him and a contact with him. He was coming, but unfortunately there was problem in his family.
He'll
so
be
we'll
here
do it
in
down
the
the line,
spring.
and that's what led us to do this program.
Right.
So we have an audio tape, so they just keep the camera on us, and we'll play the audio tape with this.
And it's done over the phone.
It's done.
We are in New York, and the medium is in British Columbia.
And he's coming with the evergreens.
Right. He's out, and we're talking with the evergreens through the phone.
Okay, let's run that audio tape then, and we'll just listen here. Contemplate the candles. If you could play that out here, please.
Okay, go ahead, Mark and Bob.
Hello.
Greetings.
We would like to run through a broad historic perspective on the beginning use of hallucinogenic, psychedelic chemicals in spiritual and other contexts. And we would like to begin by asking when the significance of these herbs, mushrooms, and so forth was first understood.
As to the medical side, or as to the effect of them? Realize that as a medicine, various hallucinogens, because of other properties within them, have been part and parcel of an herbal approach to disease and injury, in that certain of those that do have also hallucinogenic properties were used before the time of Moses as that which would be useful into palliative care. So these sides were well known, and that there was extensive cultivation of these for medicinal purposes. That they were used in religious ceremonies was not an offshoot of medicine, but to see the use of the substance for the side effects that it exhibited. That a person, and this oft times happened, that a person who would be, and let us be blunt, a person who would be mentally ill would be considered oft times God struck, and that certain of the palliative effects of a hallucinogen would be used to quieten such an individual, or to make that individual more cognizant, or in certain dosages would make that person then an instrument. You see?
How soon did humans, cultures start the use of this, discover herbs in medicine, as medicine?
At the time of Homo erectus, before Sapiens, it was well known, not easily passed on, but it was, from generation to generation, that if this particular plant were eaten or used as a complement for something else, then there would be a certain predictable effect. Oft times that when there were the need for extra energy or stamina, endurance, these things. These were well known.
So in the Neanderthal culture.
Well, that's really interesting. That's really interesting. So I hope we've been picking this up. And that was Michael Reed on the telephone, and he was channeling.
He's asleep.
He was in a trance. He was asleep when he was talking to you, and he was channeling. Was he channeling the voice of a particular person,
No.
or was that him talking, or he is
His
able
vocal cords
Yes.
are activated by the 7,000 entities called the evergreens that come inside his physical structure, whatever
Yeah.
that is,
Uh-huh.
and they move his vocal cords.
Okay.
He's asleep.
Yeah, but
so they are talking.
But
It's
you
his
could
voice.
be, you could be, from what I've talked to you, and we were at a thing last night. Two of us. It was very interesting, and so there's a lot to this. That you could have said, "All right, there is Mr. Winston Churchill. We would like to get the words of Mr. Winston Churchill,
Yes,
and Mr. Winston Churchill, you will be talking to Winston Churchill through this man."
Right. The personality
Now, was
of
he
Winston.
talking to somebody from the past when you were
No,
speaking then?
we
That
were
was-
speaking to whatever section of the evergreens, of the 7,000 entities, that is competent to explain the history of psychedelics.
well,
now, that would be like maybe 25 of these entities, and I don't know who they are.
Yeah.
It was a general agreed statement from the evergreens, but maybe, as Michael, the medium, has explained to us in a public interview, it is a group, a knowledge collective on that area of knowledge.
But it would have been possible to have gotten somebody from history that has passed. The spirits
Well, I've
are
done it
still
many
there,
times.
and
I've
they
done
will,
panels.
and they will talk in his voice. But you're talking to, say, Winston
Yes,
Churchill
yes,
or
yes.
Jesus.
Yes. The
or
evergreens will say Winston Churchill says this,
and
this and that.
you sense, and you've done this 70 times with him
Yes.
in these hour-long
Yes.
sessions, and your sense is that there is.
I've had much confirmation.
Legitimacy to what is being said.
I have no problem.
And you can verify certain things about. You could talk to somebody in your family, verify something that only you would know when it
Yes,
comes through.
yeah.
And
See,
it's a phenomenon that's pretty strange.
It's a tool I use. I do not find it a problem to believe them,
Yeah.
but I find it very interesting to relate the usefulness of that information to this mixed corporate world we live in.
Yeah.
I
What about
wanted
it,
to
Frank?
mention that here
Yeah.
in New York City about 10 years ago, for
Yeah.
many years, there was a famous deep trance channel, Alex Murray, and also Gloria Grayson, that would go, into deep trance after a round of prayers,
That's
and then
what
they
this
come out
fellow's doing, yeah.
and but with different historical figures. Oftentimes they weren't famous, but many times they were, and they would say greetings, and they would speak in their accent, and they would have their vocabulary, and it was very interesting to hold conversations with historical figures from the past. Now, whether or not you believe it, I don't know. I used to audio tape the sessions and take many notes, and I'm finally definitely convinced that why not? Spirits have lived in the past, and spirits want to continue communicating with us here in the present.
That's interesting. You're convinced of that. More and more people are. And then it would be good if some of these, it seems to me, my thing, if some of these people could be submitted to some sort of a test, psychological.
Yes.
There was a Carlos Oz, there was the Association of Psychic Research or something. There was a scientific...
Out of London.
And also in New York, and Carlos Osis was the director of it. And so, but the way to channel, to deal with these things and phenomena, you can measure with oscilloscopes or something. You can deal with it, the reality, rather than having it done. I know when Benjamin Krem said the Mashiach was coming, and we had a group of people that were really like piratical, conscious warriors, and if anybody where the flag of Moshiach went up, they would descend on that place, and he had better have it together, because they really had a lot of training in terms of recognizing what's right and wrong.
Right.
We should have like a Mashiach squad or something where they would descend upon something to get rid of the charlatans. Is it important to get rid of the charlatans, or should we allow the
Harold,
charlatans to frolic? Do you understand what I'm saying? In order to let the real come
Well,
through?
there's freedom of expression.
Yeah.
Harold,
Well,
I think
all
that
right. You know
you're
what I'm saying,
focusing on the process and rather the content.
Perhaps.
It's important that
Yeah.
the message that be delivered, even if they are from people that are, faking their mediumship, is the message resonating to a good level? Is it helping people? That's basically the main thing. Because everyone is a filter, even like Neil Donald Walsh in the Conversations with God, which is a popular book series now. He says, it has to come through him as the filter. No medium is perfectly clear channel of God or spirit world. It has to come through the body of someone on the planet Earth.
Well, I don't know that I necessarily agree with that. It seems to me it would be good to get, in terms of, if you're thinking about, like in a systems way, like if you're thinking about the whole planet is going through a thing, it's going to involve everybody, it's not just a few. If you're thinking bodhisattva, everybody everybody or something on that order, then this phenomena, if this is correct, it's extremely important. And those things that stand in the way of people being able to accept it, it would be well to separate the wheat from the chaff.
We've heard that story 100 times.
Find out and have tests for those that are just making money or think they're doing something, or they're amateurs, they don't know what they're doing,
no
and get the real ones.
There's even less possibility of a switchboard today, and you're missing the nature of our society. Information is obsolete today.
What do you mean information is obsolete? I don't know what that means.
We do not know which expression or artistic or method is valid. There's too much. And people watch all kinds of opinions and images every day on TV. They don't say, oh, I shouldn't have watched that.
No, but there are ways of doing that.
That's why it's opened up into a state of chaos.
All the more important.
Yeah.
No, but we're not in chaos.
Oh,
chaos,
yes, we are.
No,
now you're using a certain meaning of chaos, and I'm playing with your image of chaos.
Well,
so let's be aware of how we communicate with
the second law of thermodynamics say all systems, closed systems, move to chaos.
They don't agree with that anymore. There's all kinds of contradictions over that.
And that the biological
You ever go to a journal, go on a net line, a chat line, a bunch of physicists, and see how they argue among themselves?
Well,
they never do that when they present a public face, but that's when they become the meme, the archetype. So you're saying spirituality has to find a way to present its face.
Right.
In
a way.
No, it doesn't. Why does it have to present a face?
No, I'm saying that's what he wants. That's what he's asking. I'm not for that.
And if we do have a filter, a channel that's perfectly clear and it's proven, then what? He becomes a demigod.
No,
we all are.
No, that's a thing that's not necessarily true. You're just looking for something that's authentic. You know,
well,
separate
it's harder to find that.
The majority of them are authentic.
The majority. You think the majority of these people going around saying, "I'll give you a psychic reading here on the corner of 42nd and 8th Avenue for 25 cents"?
No, these psychics that charge
they're all over the
money
place.
to burn candles are obviously fakes.
Yeah. So I'm saying they should be separated out from if there is.
You can tell like that.
If that kind of thing.
You're intelligent enough. You're discerning enough.
That kind of thing gives a bad name to those that really are real. And where's the Mashiach squad? Where's the Mashiach, the squad?
Where's the media ecology squad? Why don't we turn off television for 6 weeks?
Well, there are. Well, I mean, I know we were at a thing last night with some people, and we're talking about, talking about Norbert Wiener, who was a great mathematician, cyberneticist, and he said information overload. You have information overload within a system, but information overload permits pattern recognition.
Right, so that's the benefits of chaos. No, I'm responding to what you said so far.
It allows pattern recognition between other systems at another level.
Yeah.
So that's good. That's legitimate.
We don't know if it's good. It's a fact. No, but it's not necessarily good. It's a fact.
But I don't like your idea, if I may, to just sort of give in to the idea of chaos. There is not.
No, I don't mean chaos the way you mean it. The order in chaos. There's order in chaos.
Well,
remember, the word author comes from the word awe, A-W-E.
Yeah.
We've got a problem of what creates awe, and even the intelligent design of the universe can create awe, which is a form of hypnosis.
Well, the intelligent design of the universe, it's just, I don't think that it's wrong that the people who are going to stand up and be spiritual, they have somebody, they should be able to be put to some sort of a test.
All right. So everybody should be tested.
And anybody who raises the flag of comprehensive understanding, intellectual,
which I do, and I'm willing to be put to a test.
But then there should be a Mashiach squad. Let's say that's
Bring
Mashiach.
Him on. Bring him on.
That's Mashiach. That's like a comprehensive understanding and a systems way of the evolution of universal consciousness in some new way.
Well, shall we start it? Why don't we? Who's this good? We will do it.
As soon as you got a squad or a committee judging, then you judge. The Bible says, "Judge not, you should not be judged." You have the direct path to God within you. Everyone has their own.
Everyone has that
personal.
And my dog has
the cross.
That.
Yeah, everyone.
So that there is no quality standards at all to be considered. There is no Mashiach. There is no special.
Within your
I'm sorry,
there's a lot of them.
Buckminster Fuller had it more together than the schlep that stands on the corner and says poetry. There are some people have it more together. Michelangelo had it more together.
Yes, but a minority of people have read Buckminster Fuller. Hardly anyone really knows him.
No, they do.
He's above the normal
but intellectual.
person.
But it does.
Carl London's calling. London says, "No, we're not going to let Bucky on there.
Yeah.
We're going to let Tom Brokaw dominate."
Well,
so there's power involved in knowledge. The Mashiach squad involves power.
No, Mashiach.
Whatever team, it's a battle of the teams of power and who's going to say what's real. That's an ongoing drama of cognition in humanity.
Yeah, but you give in to, if I may, you give in because we're at a time of qualitative I think we're at a time of qualitative, we're closing quotes in the human experience. We're coming into a new relationship to the evolution of universal consciousness, transcendent to what we've been throughout the human experience. We're coming to a new relationship to universal consciousness.
That's a given.
And it's important that we know who the important people are and separate them out from all the rest, even though we recognize...
Well, I agree. but we aren't having...
Well, intellectually or spiritually.
So how are we
And
going to
I'm
enforce
calling,
this Harold Hudson Chandler mandate? How are we going to enforce it? How are we going to implement it?
Well, I was just asking.
You're asking me?
I mean, I'm asking this as far as I am interested in the things as far as intellectual is concerned. Where do you get who are the people? I'm sorry, Buckminster Fuller and Marshall McLuhan are more knowledgeable than a lot of people that think they are.
And Louis Kelso.
And Louis Kelso and some others. There are some people
And you've been
more
talking
together
this
than
30
others,
years.
intellectually.
And have they got a high rise?
And in the realm of the spiritual, or in the realm of that kind of consciousness,
I'd added
expression,
Michael Blake Reed.
there should, or you would say
Okay,
Michael
I'll
Blake
go
Reed.
and I'll
Okay,
go
you could do
public with
that.
that.
And it would good.
Joyce
Or-
Brown with this new book. And there's different books that you
Well,
either
that's in the
resonate
realm
to
of
or you
popular
don't.
culture, yeah.
And it works for you or you don't. And
Right,
that's your
right.
criteria.
Yeah.
That's-
Are some psychics better than others?
Absolutely.
They are.
Basically,
How do you stand? What is the criteria by which you determine
Are
which
they
are the
clear
ones that are
channels
better?
or not?
Well,
Are
I
they
got
clear?
the reason
Are
I
some of them in
found
terms
because
of
I
some
got
universal
because someone is so
ontological
much
purpose?
better.
And
You know,
what's that? By some
if
criteria
I'm
of
talking
what
to
is
what's
better.
her name, Seth,
Yeah.
he's slow.
She was very good.
Yeah,
No, she was very
but
good.
he's
Read the
slow.
books. She
It would
was
take
very
too
good.
long.
She was good for the
She-
time.
No,
Yeah.
no, no. Good for all time.
Well, no,
All
a
right.
few platitudes. I say we've transitioned already.
Well, so they tell me,
We
the
now,
people who study
since we
that.
are no longer human, we now have access to astral
I
plane
don't
and the
think it's-
biggest high-tech quality, and that's the evergreens. So
Well-
they're good, they're fast, they're quick, they're
yeah,
rapid.
yeah.
They're,
And of
they're the
course,
Moshiach team.
There's a lot of extraterrestrials on the planet Earth visiting
Here
us.
we
and-
go with extraterrestrials,
there,
right?
we're
Is
gonna
there
go
a
with that.
tie-in with extraterrestrials? That's like the flying saucers and things?
We are extraterrestrial
Yeah.
on this medium.
Yeah.
We are
Yeah.
not in our bodies. We are broadcasting all over the place.
Right,
And if the
right.
satellite picks up.
Yeah.
So we are extraterrestrial right now.
All right, if
Yeah.
there's an extraterrestrial, I think there should be an extraterrestrial squad. There should be somebody, and that Moshiach squad, particularly
Yeah.
in the
What do you-
realm
what do you
of
want, a
spirit,
police state?
descend on that sucker who
people
said
be
he's got it
free, let-
together, right? And
Yeah.
descend on him and really put, I don't mean the fancy white gowns,
Yeah, yeah.
I mean tough pirates.
Honest.
Descend on that
Honest
son of a
with
gun.
people with integrity.
Right, and really descend on him,
that-
put him to the test.
Well, that's
man.
happening every day
Yeah.
when the media is monitoring people on polls.
Yeah.
The pollster guys, they're trying to find out what's real.
Yeah, right.
The big brother now is the Nielsen's ratings.
Yeah.
So we've got millions of Moshiach squads.
Moshiach.
Mashiach, never heard the word before. Mashiach
Mashiach
squads.
is the Messiah.
Good.
That's the Maitreya.
Yeah, I've only been in Europe for a short.
That's Alice
while.
Bailey.
Anyways, the
Maitreya,
Mashiach
the
squad.
Lord, the
yeah,
master
see,
of
you're
the-
whacking out. You're interrupting me.
No, it's
the
the masters of
Mashiach
wisdom.
squad is advertising impulsor guys. Now they run the show, and it's hard to get these amateur Mashiach
Well,
squads
we should
in
be
there.
able to get the word from the
Well, who's gonna
Maitreya
listen to you,
himself, the
Harold?
master of
Who's
the
going
master
to
of
listen?
wisdom.
Oh,
is
the
Maitreya.
master and master of wisdom are
Maitreya.
coming through in leaps and bounds all over.
No, the master of the masters of wisdom. There's one, Maitreya. He is
Well,
the
no,
Jesus,
that's me.
or the Buddha.
Remember, I claim I'm the only one who knows what's going on.
Yeah.
If we want to end this program
Well-
with an authority, let's ask me, because I am the ultimate
All right,
authority
speak.
with.
Yeah,
All right, that's
speak.
good. But there should be places where
And
people...
the answer is the medium is the message.
People-
Oh, what a multi-level statement that is.
All right,
The
thank you.
medium is the massage,
And-
the message, the massage, and the message.
All right,
Ultimately, four levels of exegesis. I've got the Christian background down, and I say we have him right here. You heard him, Michael
we
Blake
go-
Reed.
shall we go
and
out
then
with-
you listen to my radio show, then I'll be better than Harold.
Yeah.
Because Harold's show is finished.
Yeah.
It's over. He's done the
Done.
last show. He's
Done.
lost his credibility.
Yeah.
He's brought in this stuff.
Enter on
I will
me,
be
yeah.
on MNN in 2 weeks.
Thank goodness we found him, right? Okay, it's a pleasure to welcome you to the program. It's your pleasure to have Frank Craven and Bob Dobbs here
Namaste.
talking about all kinds of matters of great concern. And I do think there should be squads of people who would be able to set these standards high, set the bar high, set the
Yes.
bar high for the people that have a conscious, comprehensive understanding, either intellectual, spiritual, intuitive, or from wherever they claim it is, but set the standards high and set them against testing, because there should be places, they should not be left out in the dark. There should be a place where they can go and let them stand the test of what
Harold,
they're saying.
you either watch WrestleMania and Beavis and Butthead, or you just tune into these truths that are prevalent.
Oh, okay, tune into the truth. Anyway, thanks, Frank. Thanks, Bob.
Thank
it's good
you.
to see you. We invite you to tune in. We'll be coming back again next week. That's it for this particular program. Invite you to tune in, as you're saying. Once again, we'll see you next time, and thank you for viewing. See you then. Okay. Okay, thank you for you're playing again, Bob.
I'm making us
you're
aware
going
of the
outside
medium.
the envelope again,
We are
aren't you,
discarded.
Bobby?
We are
Bobby Dobbs,
everywhere.
You can't stay on script.
I'm watching
can
the
you?
image
You
of
just can't
myself.
stay on- you just can't stay on script.
Roll those
Bobby.
things faster, Gloria.
No sense of no sense of propriety. Whatever.
Oh, no, not when we're in an anarchistic
Yeah.
situation. We are arguing with 500 other channels
Yeah,
right now.
right,
We
right.
got to hype it up a
Right.
bit.
Well, no, it's just the truth will set you free. The truth will
Not
set you
anymore.
free.
The
But we
truth
gotta
will not
find
set
what
you
the
free
truth
anymore.
is.
That's the big problem we got today.
Yeah, well,
The truth will not. We can't even get the squad to agree what it is.
Was it Bush or Gore?